We have about 400,000 small companies, and we have lots of the big companies, and what most people lose sight of is many of those small companies work as subs and assistants to the big companies. So there's a very tight relationship. Now we're looking at what we're trying to do to finance in a way that these smaller companies, particularly the substantive ones, can hold on to their employees until we can move through to a point where the economy is back percolating. We're working on it very hard, but the reality is we're out of money. And the reason we're out of money, about 1.5 million companies have already received some financing. If you want to go really into an extraordinary number, there are 30 million small companies in this country, many of them individual workers. Now, a lot of those are not going to end up in this program, but there are lots of companies that still need support, and everybody agrees, Democrats, Republicans, independents, that we need to put that money in this program right now. It just happens that there are little political gyrations going on. It is my hope that over the weekend or on Monday this will get done. Nobody should try and take credit because everybody's going to get the blame, both parties, if we don't do it.
Tom, absolutely hear your point on that. 350 billion number clearly needs to be increased because we've come up against it. What other problems, or how serious are the other problems with the program so far? Of course, most importantly, that the money out of the door does not yet reach the 350 billion number. How many small businesses do you think may have already closed and will not reopen regardless of whether they qualify for a loan in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time?
Well, I think it's easier for your listeners and viewers to think about it in a little different way. When you take thousands and thousands of small restaurants, little coffee shops and others, they put their people off as soon as they didn't have any money coming in the door. What we need to do is to focus on the substantive companies that we think can go back into business. We'll have lots of time later to help people start new restaurants and go into small consulting issues. I'd say that a good portion of the money is committed and in the process of going out the door. You know what you have to do? You have to get all your stuff together. You have to go to your bank. Your bank has to call the SBA so that they can clear it. And then we have to figure out how do we get you the money and clear the check. People were being critical 48 hours after the banks were told which banks were certified to do this and given the rules and regulations. They're doing a good job under a difficult circumstance, but we're out of money. And it's time to put some more in. And by the way, it's not the last time we're going to have to do it.
Do you get the sense that there's that urgency on Capitol Hill? It feels like we're back to partisan ways after we did get this tremendous bipartisan support package. Haven't heard much about phase 4 at the moment, and they can't even agree to refund this very critical program, which the businesses need now.
Remember, there are a number of parts to this law. There is this business for all the small companies. There is the mid-sized company loan programs. And there's the money that's got the Treasury and the Fed together with billions and billions of dollars to protect America's major corporations that may fall into difficulty. Oh, but they'll take loans and historically always pay them back with a value to the government. I think where we have to focus right now is let's take care of the little guys. They're critical to this economy. Let's put that money in. You can't find anybody in the Congress that thinks we shouldn't do it. Let's get over the political business. We all understand it. We're coming up on an election. They're just going to go through the weekend, and I hope they do it over the weekend, but they sure do it by Monday. If they don't, nobody's going to get credit, and everybody's going to get blame Don't think one party is going to do better than another on this. This is what we need to do. The country needs to do it. The Congress needs to do it.
Tom, where do you stand on the banks and all this? Have your members been supportive of them making this process as easy as possible, despite, of course, the enormous lift it's been to get it going?
Yes, there are a lot of banks in this. Mid-sized banks and smaller banks are very used to dealing with small corporations, and those companies that have good banking relationships are moving right through it. The big banks, I listened to your program while I was waiting. The big banks, their numbers don't look great, but remember, if you take Jamie's bank, he put aside, just to start with, $8 billion that came out of these earnings, and that is so he can cover any losses from mortgages or loans. So the banks are in good shape. The banks are working really, really hard at this. They then have to work with the SBA, and they're doing a good job. Their technology's a little old, but everybody's working on it. But you can't just expect to walk into the bank and say, hey, my name's Tom, where is my money? You've got to go through the process, or nobody will have any trust in the result.
Tom, I wanted to bring up the Defense Production Act, because now we are starting to see companies, the automakers, GE, Ford, sign contracts to make those ventilators under that act. You know, this got a lot of attention when the president was earlier reluctant to use it. And one of the reasons why, reportedly, was that lobbyists like you for businesses did not want him to do that. So can you just clarify your position? And do you think it's a good thing that that is starting to happen now?
Well, first of all, we never were opposed to the use of this Defense Production Act. We were opposed to using it like peanut butter across a piece of bread. We said wherever you have a serious problem and you need to do it to give the companies the resources and the support that they need, do it. But don't use it across the board, because you'll slow everything down. In fact, the president, when he decided to use it with GM on building the ventilators, he said the very next day, no, I don't have to do this. I signed it, but I don't have to do it. You do know to make one of those things, you need about 360 different parts. Where do you get them? And you put one part into another, and they took time to get that working. The president has complimented him on numerous occasions, and it's not because of the act. In addition, you've got to be very, very careful with you getting that defense production stuff, because you give the government a lot of control on the supply chain. And right now, when you look, when people are finishing with masks and ventilators and suits, where do I take them? And if you go talk to some of the agencies of government that I won't mention, they're doing all of this on a simple spreadsheet, and they really are not the right people to do it. The best supply chain people in the country are the public companies, and they're doing a hell of a job.